In the early 1980s, the quaint town of Rulo, Nebraska, was an idyllic slice of rural America. Its residents went about their daily lives, blissfully unaware of the sinister force that was slowly taking root on the outskirts of their community. A small anti-government group led by Ryan Abernathy, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, had established a compound near the town. This group, loosely tied to the Posse Comitatus and linked to the Christian identity movement, was driven by beliefs that included white supremacy, anti-Semitism, and a deep-rooted distrust of all established earthly authority, including governments. The members of the group, drawn in by Ryan's magnetic personality and his apparent devotion to their shared cause, devoted themselves wholeheartedly to the preparations for what they believed would be the ultimate battle of Armageddon, a catastrophic race war that would reshape the world in their image. To support their cause financially, Ryan and his followers committed a series of burglaries under the cover of night, stealing from their unsuspecting neighbors and selling the pilfered goods to amass funds for their growing stockpile of weapons and supplies. As the months went by, a palpable sense of unease began to settle over the town of Rulo. The residents, once so trusting and close-knit, found themselves plagued by suspicions and fears as they noticed the strange activities taking place just beyond their borders. Whispers of the group's extremist beliefs and their preparations for an apocalyptic race war circulated through the community, sending shockwaves of disbelief and anger through the once peaceful town. The local authorities, alerted to the potential threat posed by Ryan and his followers, launched a criminal investigation that would ultimately reveal the horrific truth. In 1985, Ryan was arrested after investigators discovered that he had abused and killed 5-year-old Luke Stice. But the horrors did not end there. In a gruesome act of brutality, Ryan also tortured and killed fellow group member James Tim. Over several days, Tim endured beatings, whippings, and the removal of his fingertips by gunshot. Ryan skinned him alive, broke his legs, and raped him with a shovel before finally stomping him to death. The trial took place in Omaha, Nebraska, after a change of venue, as a consequence of the intense media scrutiny and the palpable tension that had enveloped the town of Rulo. As the trial began, the courtroom was packed with spectators, all eager to bear witness to the unraveling of the horrifying tale that had played out on the fringes of their once tranquil community. The prosecution presented a compelling case against Ryan Abernathy, painstakingly detailing the abuse and murder of young Luke Stice, as well as the gruesome torture and killing of fellow group member James Tim. They called on witnesses, including former members of Ryan's group who had turned against him, to provide testimony that painted a harrowing picture of life within the compound. The defense, on the other hand, attempted to argue that Ryan had been driven to commit these heinous acts by the extreme beliefs he held, and that he was not in full control of his actions. They tried to humanize him by bringing forth family members who spoke of a troubled past and the factors that had led him down the path of extremism. However, the defense's efforts were ultimately in vain, as the overwhelming evidence against Ryan and the sheer horror of his crimes overshadowed any sympathy that the jury may have held for him. After weeks of grueling testimony and a mountain of evidence, the jury was sent to deliberate. It took them only a few hours to return a unanimous guilty verdict for first-degree murder. The court, satisfied that justice had been served, sentenced Ryan Abernathy to death on April 10, 1986. The town of Rulo, still reeling from the shocking revelations, struggled to come to terms with the fact that such horrors had unfolded in their midst. As the dust settled, they were left with the daunting task of rebuilding their community and finding a way to heal the wounds that had been inflicted upon them. During his time on death row, Ryan claimed to be in direct contact with God and vowed to spend his days rewriting the Bible. However, he later recanted both statements, perhaps in a final act of defiance against the authority he had so vehemently opposed throughout his life. Ultimately, Ryan Abernathy did not face execution. Instead, he died of natural causes, cancer, at the Tecumseh State Correctional Institution on May 24, 2015. His death marked the end of a dark chapter in the history of Rulo, but the shadow cast by his actions and those of his followers would continue to haunt the town for years to come. When you subscribe, be sure to click the notification bell. Click here for more true scary stories.